Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to Star Wars Lads. It's our final reaction today for Ahsoka. It is episode 8, The Jedi, The Witch, and the Warlord. Make sure you're liking the video if you haven't. Really helps us out with the algorithm. We'd love to have more and more of you a part of these discussions, and the best way to do so is to get us in that algorithm by liking the video. If you are new or just finding us for the first time, subscribe to the channel. Even though Ahsoka is over, we do have a lot of great content coming out. You can check out a video we just put out too called The State of Star Wars Lads. It has all the stuff we're currently working on, the things that are coming out here in the next few weeks as we continue to push past Ahsoka into the future. Let's start off with the main plot of this episode, which is the attempt to stop Thrawn from getting back to the main galaxy. Sanak, what were your thoughts on all of these incredible battle sequences we got and the moments that lead up to Thrawn's eventual escape from Peridea?
I mean, it really felt like an episode after you have like 5 minutes to breathe. You're like, okay, that was like a nice closed loop. Like, this is an Ahsoka story. We had a lot of Sabine, we had a lot of New Republic Hera stuff. Even Jason got a little bit of spotlight, but for me, growing up on like the supposed prime of the Jedi, at least the battle prime in the modern millennia, is the Clone Wars, right? So we've seen Ahsoka do all this stuff. We've seen a Kanan who's mentioned so many times this episode. Even has like a nice little homage to him with Ezra's lightsaber. Hu Yang and him already have a dynamic. I love that. But such a cool vibe to have Kanan play such a role here in this story to bring in the importance of these guys, why we care about them, right? Like, we've had Sabine sort of fresh restart. It's now feels like it's finally connected back. But Ezra, we had nothing, and then I don't know why he just feels like he just stepped out of season 4 finale and he just kept going. Like, Iman, hats off to you, man. Like, last 3 episodes really, and you had to make as much of an impact as people who started in episode 1. Killed it. There's now a nice little dynamic between Ahsoka and a Sabine that's really ready to commit to her train to really try to become this force user in honor of her family or her own ambition. If you don't like that stuff, it's because you haven't seen every single thing. But if you understand why it hits us, so many of us, this is an insanely epic ending. Very beautiful with the music too. I loved a lot of the music around Thrawn, especially. It didn't end us off with just like a cliffhanger. It gave us like broad strokes of what's to come. It felt very almost like a new hope in its ending to me. Like, there's just like, guys, it's just getting started. That was an incredible win, loss, however you want to take it. And it's just, yeah, like, it's an episode I need to breathe again for and watch just throughout, not just clips, because this thing is so clippable. Fantastic mythical tale that Filoni's trying to really craft up in live action. Great start. If you're going to lean on what Star Wars made Star Wars from the guy who learned from the master himself, right? The creator himself. If this is like a nice love letter to that era, I loved it.
And this is the beginning. I think this is something that Ahsoka is born out of the Mandalorian, right? We see her first live action appearance in the Mandalorian season 2. This whole project, Jon Favreau on as producer, Dave Filoni, who's been producing all 3 seasons of The Mandalorian, co-writing a lot of episodes. This just felt like a Book of Boba Fett style emergence out of The Mandalorian, a spin-off that was born out of ideas from the past, but yet had to be grounded in the story of The Mandalorian. But I think what this finale really confirms and shows us is that this is not that. This is a new beginning. It's a new start. It's its own thing. And where The Mandalorian now feels like it's supplementary to the story of Ahsoka, Ahsoka is going to be pushing the boundaries of Star Wars lore and fiction into the future, giving us the biggest moment possibly in the New Republic era of Star Wars canon. For its characters, I thought the action worked really well here. You get a side of everybody. There are great character moments for every single one of these characters in this episode. Ezra, right off the bat, building an almost identical lightsaber to Kanan was such a sweet moment. Getting to hear Hu Yang talk about his time with Kanan, giving a little bit more to Ezra, who never really got the chance to hear about his master's past, not until he was gone. And now he's getting some of these moments from a droid who not only knew him, but knew what made him unique out of thousands of years of Jedi. That's a really cool moment. Sabine, the big one, She does have the force. She is force sensitive. The continual presence of it, the push for it every episode. It was Sabine. Sabine, can she connect? Does she have the aptitude for the force? I was waiting for this moment and I thought it worked well. And it was exactly what I had been saying this entire show. I did not want Sabine to do something crazy that we had never seen anybody do before with the force powers. Force pull is a perfect thing to do. A force push is a perfect thing to do. Those are simple force powers. I loved that we got to see that unlocked in Sabine and that her arc comes full circle. The first episode of the show, Masters and Apprentices, that comes all the way back. And by the time this show ends, we do have the new relationship between Ahsoka and Sabine. Both characters have gone on massive arcs to get to where they are. On top of that, Thrawn. Thrawn was so good in this episode. I loved all his moments. I loved the way Lars Mikkelsen is able to give so much in such small little facial acting. I thought all of that worked really, really well. And his speech to Ahsoka at the end was so Thrawn, and I thought that was wonderful. And then kind of the surprise, like standout of this episode, Morgan Elsbeth gets so much cool stuff. And honestly, that fight between her and Ahsoka may be the best hand-to-hand fight sequence we've seen in a long, long time. That was fast. That was kinetic. You could tell that there wasn't any filmmaking really behind it that pushed the action. It was just a lot of raw, real action, static shots, long shots, wide shots, all just taking in two great performers who were really committed to their lightsaber dueling, like you saw in the prequels. So Death Troopers also amazing. The one shot to the Night Troopers being zombies finally. I love the homage to the Death Troopers book. Literally has the exact image with the same part of the helmet of a literal in canon Death Trooper now that we see in that moment. The zombie Death Trooper, all that stuff was really cool. Let's talk about for the last section here. Let's discuss the ending, though. So you have Thrawn. He gets out of hyperspace. Like I predicted, he's not going to fight the New Republic, but I figured he was going to reinforce. And we see, I mean, just the extent of how many of these supposed bodies he has in the cargo bay. Like, man, that is crazy. So it does seem like zombies are going to be replacing clones in this version of Heir to the Empire. Then you have Ezra. Somehow, that was the one thing that was like, okay, how did he just escape randomly? Yeah, he dressed up as a stormtrooper, but like you'd have to get clearance codes to drop out of stuff. Baylan with the Mortis gods. We see Morai finally in the show, and that Ahsoka, being basically the daughter, is now going to be a part of this. The daughter's head missing. And then Shin meeting up with the Raiders. There's so many extraneous plot points here, but I think so. Let's start with Baylan. That's the one that's most intriguing, and then we can tie it up a little bit with Ahsoka and Sabine's final moment there with Anakin as well. So, Nick, what were your thoughts on the future of Baylan Skoll post Ray Stevenson's performance?
It was just so measured, so assured, just so physically inhabited by Ray Stevenson, and we still don't really know a lot about Balin. When the performance alone can sell you on the hint, and that's really all he is. He's a hint, a tease. Incredible stuff. And like again, like I was saying on my initial just bombardment of reaction, right? For us growing up with the Clone Wars and stuff like that scene hits very differently. Seeing where he's at, seeing how he's played it so far, like that image is striking. It felt very like Lord of the Rings esque, which is one of the best parts about this choreography here. Yeah, I know some people are like thinking where like there are parts of his performance cut out. I mean, I'm no expert or anything, but I don't think so. I think it was always like his finishing had to be symbolic that he is about to level up. Rest in peace, Ray Stevenson. Thank you so much. I know he at least got to see trailers and stuff with people. Ultimately, his story being that symbolic like hint giver, now it's like, okay, this is a perfect place for someone to step off in the role and have someone come in. Ray Stevenson being gone was not the ideal, but at least someone can step in and really give their own spin and it'll feel justified in the storytelling. But man, rest in peace, Ray Stevenson. You brought us all the way here. We're sorry, but you're just stuck in a different galaxy now.
Yeah, it's too bad. It really is too bad. I'm glad I went back a few weeks ago and was watching some interviews that he did. And in the celebration moment he got with Lars Mikkelsen on the stage, really getting to feel that love. I'm glad he got that because he deserves it. He was incredible in the show. While I wanted a bit more of his story overall in these last few episodes of the season, he was a villain that seemed to always be primed to branch off. He and Shin were the parallels to Ahsoka and Sabine for the first half of season one as they're going through that arc. Once they get to Peridea, once Ahsoka and Sabine have kind of evolved past that arc, he had a secondary purpose that he does make clear all the way back in season one. So that plot line, I wish got a little more in the finale, but I don't think the way that the show ended, I would have sacrificed anything for it. It is and was the extraneous plot line. And unfortunately, that does mean that most likely we don't really see any more from Ray Stevenson's version of Baylan Skoll here in the future. But there are a lot of really cool ideas that can be brought from that. I mean, the Mortis gods being there, Peridea is set up to almost be like the origin point of all Force beings, and they've kind of given us clues with that in the future, and we can see where that goes here. That will be something really interesting to track throughout the show. And then the last moment we get between Sabine and Ahsoka, I thought was really sweet, and we have Anakin there, obviously, kind of being the guardian of the whole show, watching over. I cannot wait for more Force Ghost Anakin. It might just be a Return of the Jedi style ending where we never really get that true Force Ghost connection. Anakin, we need those moments, finally solidifying why Hayden Christensen being chosen to be a Force Ghost for Anakin is something that was necessary and not just something that randomly being added in the DVD release of Return of the Jedi. That's everything. Thank you guys so much for joining our discussion again tonight and for joining our discussions the entirety of Ahsoka. Stay with us though. If you are somebody who just found us during Ahsoka, we do appreciate you sticking with us into the future. Also, stay tuned for Friday. I do have a video coming out about Ahsoka and the connections to the larger Star Wars plan. You'll want to see that to hear kind of the final send off of ideas about Ahsoka as we get here into the future. If you haven't, make sure you like the video. It really helps us out with the algorithm. If you aren't already subscribed, please subscribe for more. Thank you so much for watching this video and for joining us for Ahsoka, and we will see you all for the next video.